Well, hey everyone. Just want to say it's Ellen again, and I am enjoying doing these lives here on Facebook. And with me today is good friend Lisa. I've known Lisa for a good number of years. When I lived in Wyoming, we got to know each other. And I've just been so impressed with her journey and so impressed with her ability to rise above the circumstances as they come. Because, life isn't easy. You know this, Lisa. Life is challenging. It has its moments. And I've just been so impressed by her courage, by her tenacity to really just keep pushing, to find truth, to transform, to even morph in her beliefs, come through areas of healing in her life journey. And it's just a real honor to have you here, Lisa.
It's an honor to be here. So thank you for having me.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
So as I was saying before we went on, that this is an opportunity for you to just free flow, share whatever you would like, and we will generate the content based around whatever it is you want to share. So let's look at your life journey. Let's take it from there.
All right. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is maybe my deconstruction journey.
Sure
and
thing.
I think that would be a good start. It's funny because like when I was in the church, and even when I look back, and I'm sure you can relate, but like I am like the least likely person who would ever that anyone would ever be like, oh, she's gonna probably leave maybe the church one day, or she's gonna like deconstruct her belief. Like I was like the least likely person because I was so genuine and faithful and wanting to do the right thing. And so like even when I look back, it kind of blows my mind that I'm on this journey, but it also makes sense too. So but it's just funny. And so like the beginning of my journey, I guess I will say, like, of my deconstruction process, which started in Wyoming, is that it all began to unravel like organically and beautifully, and it was all okay in like the confinements of the church, right? So like I remember I used to work at a nursing home called Life Care Center of Casper, and the residents were doing like Jeopardy. And I remember watching Jeopardy, and then all of a sudden, like I realized, like at that moment, I felt like it was God speaking to me, but I felt like God was saying like, you don't have your own thoughts. You basically just believe whatever everybody's telling you, even like in the church. And I was like, what?
Wow.
This is crazy. And so like that was like the beginning of my deconstruction process. And then like I stepped into like another concept, like the realities between like sacred and the secular.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I began to like realize like, and I felt like this was God too. Like people don't realize like my journey like into deconstruction, the whole process, I really was like, God is leading me in this direction, So because like the concept of like sacred and secular, like I was like, it's all one. Like I'm finding God so much in the secular just as much as I find him in the sacred, and so like those two concepts of like thinking my own thoughts and finding God in all things, like I felt like it was still okay within the confinements of the church. I still felt loved, I still felt accepted, but it wasn't until like later, when I became more like inclusive of like the LGBTQ community and like Black Lives Matter, and that's when I started feeling more of like the rejection. And it's interesting because I like deconstructed from when I left Wyoming, which is like Wyoming, my hometown and Elko are like the two places where I like grew up as a Christian, and so like then I moved away from it all. And so a lot of people, like my process, like I've deconstructed like away from it. And so like my rejection happened online through messages, and which is another experience. Not everybody experiences that, but like my rejection came from like people like messaging me with concern and saying that I'm going to hell or I'm going down the wrong path. And so, yeah, but yeah, so that's kind of the beginnings of my journey of really deconstructing. And I just wanted to like, I was thinking about this yesterday, and I hope I'm not talking too much.
No, that's the whole point. It's a free flow. You just talk what you need to.
Okay, well, you can stop me whenever, but yeah, like I don't think people realize, like those of us who do deconstruct, like I know like some people, they can just leave it, piece of cake, easy,
Yeah.
but people don't realize how much like I wrestled and I cried.
Yes.
And I like I literally was, that scripture in the Bible talks about like wrestling with God. Like I literally like wrestled with every single concept. So like being inclusive of the LGBTQ community, like I literally wrestled with that for weeks and weeks. And then I came to my conclusion that God is love and there's no like separation. Like, but I wrestled and I wept and I cried about that. And like I wrestled with it with hell, and because I no longer believe in hell. And so it's like for me, like it was all genuine. And for me to like completely doubt all of it, like I literally like wrestled and cried and didn't want to like let go of it necessarily, but then it was like, but I can't anymore, so I think, like, I don't know if people in the church think this, but like, oh, we just leave it to go and sin or whatever.
Right.
But it's no, I mean that wasn't the case for me. But like for me it was like a battle and a struggle, and like it wasn't easy, and it was very isolating, and like
Yes.
those feelings. But yeah.
I appreciate you saying that, Lisa, because I think there is that viewpoint that, oh no, we're not in church, or maybe we're shifting our beliefs about eternity, or this really can't be God. And you hit on two things that I've always enjoyed about your journey, which parallel with mine, is that it was God who took me on this journey. And it doesn't matter which way we slice it, it was God who took me on the journey. And it wasn't something that I woke up one day and said, oh yeah, I want to leave community. I want to come out and, as gay, or I want to do all these things, because I knew backlash and the rejection and the things that would come with this. And so like, that was the last thing that I wanted to do. That was the last place I wanted to lay my head. But it's that inner prompting, right? It's that inner knowing. You just start to think, why is that not feeling right to me? That's just not, something is wrong with that belief, or the way that they're spinning this over here. Why does that feel so legalistic or exclusive? And it's that discernment, that waking up to a system that we found was not working for us and wasn't where God was actually wanting to take us and lead us.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like you can relate to this, but like, I don't know, just I think we're both kind of seekers. We've always been kind of seekers, and it's funny how like being a seeker within the church, people love that. Like they're just like, you're amazing. And
I know.
And I'm sure we were like, I know I was like in the front, seeking God and like worship, like dancing and all of these things. Like, it's just funny how like being a seeker, however that looks like within the church, it's beautiful and they love that, but like once you get on the outside of that, it's like, oh no, like you've gone too far, it's, well, I'm a seeker. Like I'm not going to be in the same place ever. Like, even in this moment, I'm probably not going to believe the same things that I'm believing now. I'm going to continue to seek,
100%.
find beauty in other ways, so yeah. But
So how did you, because I think this is always something, within the church, there is very much you have to have an answer for everything. Everything has to, what's the word? Oh, security. It's got to be secure. Like, you've got to have that answer. And I don't know about you, but I have found on the deconstruction process, I have more questions than I do answers. And I find that actually a safer place for me, a more enjoyable place for me than being so assured on one point. What was that like for you?
yeah, I guess, like, to go back, because I wasn't raised in the church, and so I think at first, um, having those, like, clear answers and, like, black and whiteness within the church, like, I needed that so much,
Mhm.
and and I ate that up because, like, um, I don't know, like, as someone who grew up in, like, a more dysfunctional family where there wasn't clear answers and it was just really messy, and yeah, so it's just like my inner child really, like, loved that. And I think as I grew up in it, I, like, like, raised myself in the church, but, like, um I love that. Like, I love the sense of security, the sense of, like, knowing, um and I don't know, like, it really was like it seemed like a positive thing. And so, like, um but I think, like, as I began to deconstruct, um yeah, I think at first maybe it was a little bit difficult, but at
Mhm.
the same time, I was just like, yay, I can be like a human being, because I feel like having that sense of, like, knowing and that black and whiteness of thinking of like knowing the answers, like, I think I felt really confined in my identity, and that I couldn't go, I don't know if that makes sense, but that I couldn't, like, be who I was, or who I am within that. And so, like, when I was able to, so I think at first it was difficult, but then it was like, oh my goodness, like, I can just be a human being. Like, I can be in the gray, I can be messy, and that's okay. And I think a good example of this, I feel like this is a good example, but, like, um I remember I was in church in Wyoming, and no, actually, this was like days before. I think it was like a Saturday night service, and I was struggling with my mental health, right? And I was having extreme, like, panic attacks, and just dealing with dealing with that. And I remember I was like, you know, blaming the devil, like, because
Oh,
I feel
yes.
like in the church, that's an answer. Like, oh, it's the devil. Perfect. That's the answer. And then you think that's the answer. And so you, like, are praying, Satan, leave me. These are not my thoughts. These are
Mhm.
Satan thoughts, and all of these things. And in a moment, I felt God say, Lisa, this isn't the devil.
Mhm.
You you have panic attacks. And I was like, what is this? What is happening? And, like,
Wow.
that kind of blew up my whole world, because I was able to name it. Because blaming the devil just created more trauma within my life. It just created more stress, and it created just, like, paranoia of the devil, even, like, at night, like, I'm having a panic attack and I'm just, like, waiting for, like, an entity to, like, enter my room or something. Like, I was just like, okay. But so, yeah, like, in that moment, to be like, oh my goodness, I have panic attacks. It was just so healing. And I feel like that is a great area. So I feel like that's that's an example of like, I felt like for a long time that like my trauma from my childhood and my anxiety, it was all Satan. Like that was the answer.
Hmm. Hmm.
But then like getting it back to a human level of like, no, it's just panic attacks or your own trauma. And I think that's one example that was really just really healing for me to not have an answer for. I mean, because I still deal with it. And I think that's the other thing. It's like, um, this is another example, but like, I always thought one day I'm going to be healed, or
Yeah.
from my trauma, because, it's like, oh, before you were born, you're made, perfect or whatever. And which, I mean, that is beautiful, and we are all like beautiful human beings, and we are all loved from conception. Yes, beautiful. But like for me, like in trauma, it's just like, I don't know, there's a sense in the church that I was going to be restored one day,
Mhm.
like a normal life. But I'm not, you know what I mean? And for me, having mystery within my own trauma and realizing I'm going to have a healing journey until the day that I die. um that's been more healing, of realizing it's going to be with me every day. Will have I'll just have better tools to kind of process through my own trauma. And so like I think that's another area of like black and white. Like I'm not going to be healed one day. Like I'm not going to be in a service and someone's going to pray for me. I'm going to fall down and I'm going to like stand back up and I'm going to be healed, um, you know so I feel like knowing that my healing journey is every day. um I think that's also another. I'm hoping I'm answering your question.
You're doing well.
Oh, good. Like,
Yep.
and just thinking of like mental health, my own like, trauma healing journey. Like, I felt like I had answers to those things, but there's not answers. There's just you know tools that I just need to better take care of myself on a regular basis. And there are no answers. It's just being able to listen to myself on a regular basis. But those things are very gray, I guess.
I
And
really
yeah.
like what you said there about listening to yourself, because I've known you for a while now. And
Mhm.
I remember when there was this pressure for the healing to happen. And there was this pressure that, oh my gosh, if I'm feeling depressed today, or maybe I have suicidal thoughts, or maybe like who am I going to go to tell that to? Because they're going to immediately just be like, I'm going to cast out that demon of this, and I'm going to, pray a scripture over you, and you need to have more faith, or you're over worrying there, Lisa, is a sin, and whatever it may be. And what I'm loving to hear from you is the integration process that I'm starting to see within your humanity. You are starting to integrate into just loving you, loving the shadow bits of you. I mean, for me, Christianity taught to cut off things, and I'm not necessarily against cutting off things. I think there are things that we we don't need to be having in our lives, but there's this other feeling of, well, I'm also cutting off who I am. Like there was like this feeling like you couldn't be yourself. And as a worship leader for 10 years, and then prophetic minister, well, these are what do I look like up there, if I'm struggling with something? And there would be this tension to put on the mask, and we had to do this, that, and the other. And I love hearing how you are morphing into greater self-love and greater understanding of you and your past, and how that has affected you. I love where you're at. I'm not saying the journey's easy, not at all. The journey is not easy, and deconstruction adds a whole new level to it. But I do believe that the tools and the things that you're learning to walk through now in the area of integration and self-love, and not cutting you out, but actually pulling you towards yourself, is going to continue to transform your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because it's that cutting off. And I did deliverance ministry and was in healing ministry. And I felt like the human sides of us, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, the human desire, maybe it's for, I don't know, physical affection. I'm a physical affection girl. Well, where do you go if you're single for that in the church? Who are you going to get a hug from when you like want one, or the little desires to maybe go out and have fun, or just to explore. Just human desire in a lot of ways was a no-go zone. It was to pursue God's desires, and then all of your desires will come to pass. But I'm starting to actually, I haven't started, I've been kind of flipping that around and realizing, well, wait, I actually have desires as a human. So can you speak to that a little bit about desires?
Sure. I am, yeah, I feel like there's this notion in the church that you can't trust yourself, because I don't know, I feel like a lot of people like in the church, and I'm not speaking for everyone, but there's this notion that like I don't know, maybe thinking about like maybe before they came into the church or something, but they're just like, my desires got me into trouble, and
Right.
it caused all of these bad things in my life. And so like I hear that and I'm like, well, I mean, if I think it's really hard to like, I believe in karma, you know what I mean? Like if you're gonna make a bad decision, then it's going like that. It's not the devil, you know what I mean, or anything like that. It's just like I feel like we can still trust our, you can still like neglect your instincts and make a bad choice. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And I think that like people, it's really hard to explain, but like it kind of makes me, um, yeah, like I understand that like as human beings we make bad choices, but that doesn't mean that means you can still trust yourself. I don't know if it makes any sense. And so like I feel like if you truly listen to yourself and to your intuition and your gut, not just your trauma, I feel like a lot like people who make, like when I make bad decisions, it's because I'm listening to my trauma, or I'm listening to my people pleasing tendencies, or I'm listening to like other aspects. But when I listen to like my true desires, I feel like that is God within us. And I think that's God and us together, like
Yes.
and I think like our true desires, because there's that notion of the flesh, the desires of the
Right. Mhm.
yeah, I think, I don't know, let's talk about, I don't know, purity culture, and just like our own I don't know, so this is on Facebook, so here we go.
It's all okay.
Okay. But I no longer feel like, sex outside of marriage is a sin, you know what I mean? I no longer believe that. Yes, like you can still uh, it's you have to trust yourself. You have to know who you are. Um you have to know, because like yeah, like for me to believe that sex outside of marriage is not a sin, but that doesn't mean I'm like reckless. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right. Right.
It doesn't mean I'm making like that.
Mhm.
That's the thing. It's like people think, oh man, you think sex outside of marriage isn't a sin, or like that desire for connection. That means you're gonna be reckless. No,
Right.
actually, I'm not reckless, but I I've had I've only had a couple of interactions, and like last summer, like currently I'm single, but like last summer I had a beautiful experience, um and explored my desires within that realm, and it was amazing and it was beautiful and like it was like the first time that I did not experience shame or guilt as I did with another previous partner, you know. And so like um I don't know if I'm making sense, but like I think when it comes to desire, human desire, it doesn't mean recklessness. It doesn't mean those of us who are, I don't know, the deconstruction community, it doesn't mean that we're like willy-nilly and like, you know,
Mhm.
raging or whatever, you know.
Oh, right. Right.
Yeah, and so like I feel like true, genuine, beautiful desire is, it feeds the soul, and it doesn't, yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to say. It's I like people think desire is like of the flesh,
Mm.
and I don't I don't know. I don't like that scripture. So the desire.
No, no, I understand. I mean, it's interesting you're talking about this, because I remember the scripture that was brought up to me a lot was that the heart is deceitfully wicked. And that's in Jeremiah. And that would be spun to me when it came to my heart's desires or the things that I was longing to do. And it would be spun, and it wasn't that people were trying to spin things necessarily in a corruptible manner or even in conditional. Like some people were not. I mean, I know some were, but some were not. Some were, the most of them were genuine, but they had this belief that if I was making decisions, remember, your heart is deceitfully wicked, Ellen. And so who can know it? That's the next part of the scripture, like who can know this? So you might be making a bad decision here, or you shouldn't be over here thinking this way. And I remember how much fear that put into my soul, because it was like, oh my God, like I can't think critically, because as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, according in Proverbs. And it was like, oh my goodness, I can't think now because my heart could be deceitfully wicked. So then where do I go? Well, I'm pleading to God, who's like way over here, or I'm bouncing everything off every authority within the church to make a decision for me, because I truly believe that the leaders in the church, and I really believe this, I look back on it now and I'm like, how in the world did I, we're all fallible in different ways, but I had put them on such a pedestal, the leaders, that they made the decisions for me. Yes. Because I did not believe that my heart, that could be possibly deceitfully wicked, who can know it, that they would know it better and would be able to lead me better.
Right. Yeah. I think about that all the time. And another example of that is, this one's much more simpler, but in regards to like travel, like I remember I was wanting to go to like Africa for what's that school, the ministry school in Africa with Heidi Baker.
Heidi Baker, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I literally got my passport. I was like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go. But like in that, it was like you have to get permission from your pastors, and so like I did the whole application, and it just like, but then it turned out it was just like, and this isn't God, like speaking of like desire and like God's will, like I just never, I don't know, like I think I had a sense of God's will, but I had other people determining like, oh, this isn't God's will for you, Lisa. Like this isn't his will, when in reality, like my heart is burning. Like I really feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. And then to have like some people in the church say, oh, this isn't God's will. And so I didn't go,
Right.
and and I, yeah. And so like, that's what it made me think of when you were talking. It's just like having leaders in the church decide for you what God's will is, or what your desires are, or making decisions for your next steps in life. And so that does create a reality of like, I can't trust myself,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
because other people are like contradicting what I know to be true, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
And would you say that that also happened a lot because I can speak for myself on this one, because of people pleasing? I had a real problem with people pleasing. And so if the leader said no, then I said no, and I didn't even question it. Or if they said yes, well, then I said yes. Um, and I would sometimes, but I think honestly, people pleasing overshadowed everything with me. But sometimes I would get a check inside that went, no, I think I'm supposed to do this anyway. But because of the need for belonging, which was very much a trauma that was totally full of trauma with me, the need to belong, the need to be accepted. I would totally fall in line with their expectations, because if I did that, I knew that I would get a pat on the shoulder or good job. You've learned to submit to authority. And the interesting thing is I can be pretty fiery. I'm a fiery person, but in general, I was very submissive too. Except when I really felt avenues of control, and then I was like, boom, I got, or there wasn't love attached to something. Then I could be quite controversial. But in the most part, I was pretty much, thinking, okay, these people are leaders. They know more than me. They know the Bible more than me. So they're standing up there preaching. They must know more. And really what it was, when I look back on it, was my own people pleasing.
mhm,
And falling into that and needing the approval of people to find a sense of worth and identity and belonging.
absolutely. Yep.
And I
Same.
know you've mentioned people pleasing, so would you like to talk about that a little bit, what that had looked like for you?
Sure. I think, just to touch on what you've already said, it comes down to just wanting to belong, and um, it like, and I also was just thinking about like, just within my own story, it's like, from my own like childhood trauma. I tell people this, like, if you've experienced trauma as a child, I'm not saying someone's gonna like, I'm not like, for me, I feel like most people, not all people, I feel like you can transition, like people who get out of their own trauma in a quicker way. That's great. That's fantastic. But I feel like, for some people, it's, um, I don't know, they do like drugs, or they go into some other aspect of addiction. And I feel like my addiction, I landed in like religion, and so
Right.
and so I feel like that's how I kind of, um mm, covered my need, um like my trauma. That was like my covering for my trauma. So it was like, once I was in the church, I was in it. I gave everything. But my people pleasing, I've always been a people pleaser even before the church. And so, it definitely, um and I am someone who wants to do the right thing, and I think that also plays into, my people pleasing thing, reality. And so like, for me, real I think at first, I don't know, it's really complicated, because like, oh my goodness, it was all like beautiful and genuine,
Mhm.
and but also at the same time, like, um I had a lot of trauma. And so like, my coping mechanism was to be the good person, to be the people pleaser, to do the good thing, to do the right thing. And yeah. And so, uh yeah, I think right from the get-go, it was like, you know, um I started going to youth group, and then I didn't get saved right away, but then I started going on Sundays, and even like being at the altar and someone's like, uh, do you know where you're gonna go? you know,
Right.
I didn't even go to the altar, so I don't even remember how I got to the altar, but I remember being at the altar and then someone came to me and was like, "Do you know where you're going to be if you don't accept Jesus?" I'm like, "Well, I don't want to go to hell, so I'll accept Jesus into my heart, sure." And I feel like that might have been. I feel like that's a little bit of a people pleasing thing too, but yeah. Oh my goodness, like I think because I got saved at 13. So 13 up until like 30 or so, like for sure. Very much a people pleaser, doing nursery, volunteering, not feeling like I can say no. And I think in that whole process, like, I don't know, like, I think it's a mixture of like I was genuine and fiery and I wanted to help people, but then
Yep.
also people pleaser within me, and it literally burned me out. Like I literally was just like, I can't do it anymore,
Mhm.
and so like yeah, so it definitely fed into my people pleasing skills, which is just it was just basically saying like I just want some love, and
Right.
this is how I get love is by being the good person and by giving of myself and volunteering and all of these things. And it just stems from my childhood, my own trauma that had nothing to do with the church actually, yeah, I kind of um I don't know, there's like it's very like what you were saying, it's just like you were genuine and fiery, but then also people pleasing. and
Well, and there's that walking over, and I know I had spoke this with my talk with Vanessa, that there's that feeling of you want God to love you too, right? You want to feel worthy to God. You want to feel like you're pleasing God in all things. So you lay your life down, but it's laying your life down for me anyway. And maybe you can relate to this. And I know we've talked a lot about this. It's a laying your life down that actually suffocates the very life out of you. There was absolutely no breath coming to me because I was doing everything and things I didn't want to be doing. I mean, I'm a leader, so usually I'm put in leadership positions. I didn't, I like leadership. I enjoy that. I can find that fun, but not leadership of every single area within every single area of every area. But because I wanted to please God, I felt I couldn't trust myself with a feeling of no. And that could be going against God and then going against leadership. And then I wanted to please leadership. It's all one twisted cycle. So you lay your life down and you do all these things in the name of God from a pure heart, from a good heart. It wasn't like I was, trying to, do it, but it was a pure heart. But then it's like, why am I not enjoying life? Why am I at church, 8 days a week when there's only 7? Why am I at every service? Why am I doing the X, Y, and Z, you name it?
Mhm.
And in reality, what was happening was the life was being sucked out of me. And when you talk about burnout, I'd love to hear a little bit about your burnout. What did that look like for you? Did you find yourself just, well, why don't you tell us what that actually looked like for you?
Sure. I don't know. I don't know when exactly it started to like pop up necessarily. But like 2016 was like the peak, basically. And I just couldn't necessarily do it anymore. But I think up to that point, I've all this is the thing. Even like within the church, and I'm always like just giving of myself and that laying down of my life.
Mhm.
there was always something within me, like, no matter what I did, I was like, well, this isn't forever. Like, I know I'm meant to do something else. um
Interesting.
and and I think like in my 20s, and I'm trying to like remember who I was in my 20s, just because I feel like, because I didn't really pursue my own desires at all. I think if I did pursue my own desires, I probably would be living like in Southern California, and I would be like an artist working in movies or something. I think in my 20s, that's what I was like. I was always dreaming and all of those things. So it's like, even as I was people pleasing, I was like, oh, I want to be an artist, or I want to write for a movie, or I was just like, because I am an artist.
You are,
And
you're a genuine artist. Mhm.
yes, but I completely like denied that, because even at church, I always was like, well, I don't belong on stage with, I don't know, like, I don't know if this is like my own trauma. I'm not saying that it was even the church. I feel like a lot of it could just be like my own projection, but I was just like, always felt like I was on the outside looking in. And I think that really did cause my burnout, because of the constant denial of my own identity and who I am. Like, I even remember, I went to a program called Master's Commission, and I remember, like, I had like this burning desire of like travel, like, oh my god, like I just want to travel
Yeah.
so bad. And I was just like, that, like, I loved it, but I could like, I had the excitement, and then in 1 second I was like, well, that's not for me. That's for everybody else.
Wow.
That's not for me. And you talk about like being in like leadership roles. Like, I knew that like I was a leader, but for some reason people put me in more of like the, oh, you can just go work with the kids, or um like, I remember like in Master's Commission there was like this opportunity to do like video kind of things. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to do like do video stuff, like that creative aspect of it. And they basically put me like in the booth where you do like the the song lyrics on the
Yeah.
screen. I was like, come on. Like, I like, that's not what I wanted. I didn't, I feel like people put me in roles where it was like, I was, oh, you're gonna do so good in the more hidden roles, where no one's gonna see
The
you.
help roles. Yep.
Exactly. And I'm like a creative person. I think I'm meant to like express myself for people to see. And I mean, you can see that with like my selfies and stuff. It's like, I love expressing myself. And so yeah, and so like, so all of these like denials of myself and letting people define me, it really just led to my own burnout in 2016, and I'm still recovering. I
Right.
feel like I still haven't come out of that, and I'm still trying to figure out what that path looks like. And as much as I love this deconstruction process, but the deconstruction kind of put it like a little stop in my step, and like the pandemic and all and
Mhm.
some of the, but and breaking up with someone, but
Right.
like,
Right.
which, that's life. But I'm still recovering, and I'm still figuring it out. But I'm glad that I recognized it, and I'm glad um that I like left, because I moved away from Wyoming, because that's where I was or was it 2015? It was 2015, I think, before I was 30. Um and that's, like, I'm proud of myself for that. So I'm glad that I recognized that I needed to leave Wyoming, I needed to move, and I've been trying to still figure that all out, get out of burnout. And
Yep.
I'm still a people pleaser, even in deconstruction. And
Lisa.
but yeah, so I don't know if I spoke to burnout necessarily, but
Okay,
uh,
you're okay. I think I think it's just layers. You're going through layers of it. For me, burnout meant I was on a couch for 8 months and I couldn't do anything. I didn't want to care about anybody. I didn't want to love anybody. I didn't want to minister to anybody anymore. If somebody wanted something from me, I was just like, I can't do this. Like I didn't have the emotional wherewithal to do anything. And it wasn't because I was a bad person or anything like that. It was just like, I can't do this because I had laid my life down so much so, and that people walked all over me, and basically I was just walked on the whole time. That burnout, though awful, was a turning point for me because I began to listen to my body.
Yes.
And I think with people pleasing, I can say this with people pleasing, or from, trauma responses or whatever it may be, or expectations by God, expectations by people, you name it, you start to not really listen to your body. Like you just move on adrenaline. And that's what I was doing. I was adrenaline junkie, Ellen, like I was putting in hours that you shouldn't be putting in, like where was the sleep? So I began to listen to my body. I began to eat better, take care of myself, and I let my body lead me back into things. And it's amazing how your body will actually act as a plumb line and almost like a gauge as to whether or not you should do something or not. Because now if somebody asks me to do something, and my intuition goes, nope, I'm not supposed to do that, it's not just going to be my intuition, it's going to be my body. My body is going to be like, no, to like scream to like stop. And so I think burnout for me also helped me understand God in a different light too, because you beat yourself up when you're in burnout. That's not strong faith. Come on, you just keep going. And I learned that God, universe, source, whatever you want to call God, because God has multiple names that are even outside the Bible. They can be all over the place. Yep. That whatever, God still loves me. It didn't matter. Like I stopped prophesying. I stopped everything. And I realized if I never prophesy again, or I never do anything of formal ministry again, it's okay, because God still loves me. And I went through that healing process. I think in my burnout took 4 years to come all the way through. And I feel like there's no timetable on it. I feel like you take the time that you need, you do what you need to do to get where you need to be. Because it really is about you now. Things are about you. Even in the midst of people pleasing, you still say is there, and deacon, whatever. Still about you now. It's returning back to Lisa, returning to the inward woman of the heart, which is not deceitfully wicked, turning back into her heart and beginning to find breath again. And I think as you step into artistic expression and you step into the traveling, I mean, I've watched you move all over the place. I was telling somebody recently that I have moved literally in 51 years, 180 times. Craziness. Yeah. Wonderful, all at the same time, but craziness too. Yeah. But that's my breath. That's my breath. And I believe as you step into the artistic self, you'll find the breath again, because that's what you cut off. You cut off your own breath, moved into panic breath with man pleasing and everything else, God pleasing to a fault, all of these things. And as you step into the artistic expression, your breath will be released. Mm-hmm. I love your art. Tell us what you do, Lisa, because I love your art.
Well, that's, I don't know what happened along the way, but I need to reactivate that part of me. But right now, I have photography, and I'm working. Yeah, I'm working towards getting a better camera. So right now I just use my phone, but I have my business idea is like the name of it is Puns of Life Photography. So right now that's kind of like my main thing. I just moved, so I'm in a new place, and so I'm unpacking. But I'm gonna get back into. I think drawing is more. I think I've been teaching myself how to paint, which is lovely and great. But there's like a draw of going back to drawing because that's more of like my comfort zone, and I feel like that's gonna be a better start, and then I can expand from there. But yeah, I'm in the beginning stages, and because like when you deny something within yourself for so long,
Yeah.
sometimes it can, like, it's there, that's what you love, but sometimes it takes a minute to like restart. It's like starting the engine, you're just like turning the key, but it's like you have to keep I gotta keep yeah, I'm gonna start soon, so to get back into that. But so yeah, people will see more of my art because I do it sporadically, but I need to do it consistently. So yeah. Oh, and I'm also a writer.
I know. I was gonna talk about that. Some of the things that you write is remarkable.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Where did that start for you? Where did writing start?
so I think it's always been there.
Mhm.
Like I even remember like in high school, which I was like an average. I was always the person with potential, that kind of a thing. But I remember I even remember in high school like writing being really easy, like to express myself and all of those things. So I actually didn't know I was a writer until like Facebook, actually. When I started to write more on Facebook, people were just like, wow, you said this is amazing. Like whether I was inspiring, like it was an inspiring post or I don't know, whatever. So it wasn't until like social media and speaking of the prophetic, um I think about this actually. But when I was living in Wyoming, there was like a prophetic team that came. So I feel like, okay, so this is like a side tangent. I think there is, I don't know. I think the prophetic is just like it's an energy. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it doesn't just belong to the church. Like
Right.
anybody can be prophetic. Whatever.
Absolutely.
Anyways, I just wanted to say that because like I feel like you can speak into someone's life and you can see something that maybe possibly they can like connect to when it comes to the future, whatever. Anywho, so that was a side note, but like coming back to writing, we were at this pizza place in Wyoming, and someone from this prophetic team was like, I can see you like writing books and they like become like a movie or something. And I was like, you have no idea how much I've been like thinking about that. So yeah, so I think like it really started, like my desire for writing really started to come up in like the mid tens. That's weird to say, but like 2015, 2014 kind of a thing. But it wasn't until social media that I really
Mhm.
began to realize that, yeah, I'm a writer for sure. So
Social media is fun like that, isn't it? I think um I find I'm writing more and more and more and more and more and more. I mean, just through social media, and it's just been a great avenue of building confidence. Um, Obviously, I'm on Instagram, so I do all these reels. Like they're just all avenues of confidence building. That's what they are, and I love it. Like I just find social media. Some people can find it really draining, but I think it's just you pick and choose what you're going to focus on in social media. But some of the greatest conversations I've ever had have been with people on social media, over social media, reading their posts, joining their groups, doing all of these things. Like it's been remarkable, the connections and the community, and especially as a single woman, the connections and community that you can meet within social media. Social media, sometimes can be really branded as like, the devil's playground and whatever. For me, some of the best relationships that I have met have been through social media.
mhm.
I've learned so much about myself on social media. I've learned so much about myself on social media. So yeah, it's a good thing.
That is a good thing. Yeah. So
Well, Lisa, I have truly just enjoyed catching up with you. I said I just wanted to do this. I wanted to give you just a space and place for you to share. And I'm wondering if you could just end with something that you feel you just want to share from your own heart. And we've been talking about deconstruction, and you know, a lot of people are starting to go through it, or they're resisting it, but then they're going to eventually go through it. You know, anything you'd like to say before we close this out?
well, I want to say, um, first thing that came to mind is I'm here. You may not know me, but I'm here for you, especially if you're going through the deconstruction process. And depending your own process, it might be easy. It might be like, I mean, not to like swear, but like, fuck this, I'm out, whatever. It might be easy for you, but like, but it also might be, depending who you are, it also might be hard. And you might go through some rejection, you might go through some isolation, but there's a whole group of us, and I think that's one thing I wish I had, was just I don't know, a community. And I didn't have that necessarily, but it's like opening up, and it's amazing. And so like, one thing about in the church, it's like sometimes I just wanted to go have coffee with someone and
Mhm.
have that human connection. That is it. No like praying over me or whatever. I just want to like
Yes.
have coffee
Yeah.
and all of that. So that's what I want to just say, is that as a human being, I'm here. Ellen's here. Reach out. You're not alone. And deconstruction, it's not just hard, but it is also beautiful. Like, and give yourself
Yes.
room to explore, because it's there's so many things to explore, and it's okay. And you're not sinning. You're fine. So
I love you. You're not sinning. I love you.
not sinning. You're a human being who is naturally exploring. It's normal. It's fine.
Yes, yes. And in that evolving and transforming. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you for those words. I do like the adage, you're not sinning. And it can be very much the will of God for you. And you know, the one thing I want to end on is there's this Bible verse that actually encourages deconstruction. It's that says it's the glory of kings to search out a matter. And it is the glory of being human to search out these constructs, these beliefs, these things that we have been ingrained with, conditioned with, taught, lived in, wept in, rejoiced in, all of it. It is still the glory of being human to search out a matter. And so my encouragement to you and to anybody else who is watching is it is beautiful and powerful and wonderful, sometimes eerily scary. Sometimes it can be really dark. And there can be like, I'm having a dark night of the soul because everything is being ripped out from under you. But what there is something that is always being brought back in. That's the one thing I love about this process is you don't just toss everything aside and nothing goes back into you. You are not left starving. It's just new food is put in front of you and you get to taste something new, and you can taste and see that it is actually good at the end of the day. So keep going, Lisa. I'm really proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, proud of you, proud of you. I'm so glad that we connected in Wyoming all those years ago and you know, just kind of maintained friendship. I remember you would always sit in front of me in church. I remember that. I'd be there for the night service and there you were with you have your little hats on and you'd be right in front of me and I'd be like, Lisa, you know, so it's been good. It's been good. But thank you for sharing openly, candidly, just being you, not putting on an air for anybody else. And I think that's fantastic. So you're
Mhm.
amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So everybody, I do have more lives coming this week. I've got